What would it look like if four former high school teammates were all playing for the same college team and had a chance to take that team to conference championship glory? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Sevite squadron of four that is leading the Arizona Wildcats this season. But before I get into that, if you go on to enjoy this video, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date whenever I post. Without further ado, let's get into this Sevite foursome. So starting things out, the guys that I'm going to be talking about in this video are starting quarterback Noah Fifita, wide receiver Tetaioroa McMillan, tight end Keyan Burnett, and then linebacker Jacob Manu. So these four guys have gone from Anaheim to Arizona, or Anaheim to Tucson if you want to go with the cities, but getting the A themes in there. These four guys are all very valuable and important pieces of this Arizona team. Obviously, Fifita was the starting quarterback after last year's quarterback went down with an injury, and he went on to have a phenomenal year. For a team that started 3-3 and finished the season with a 7-game winning streak to go 10-3, Fifita was one of the guys leading the way. But alongside him was McMillan. Those two guys put up a ton of numbers on offense. I'll pop up their stats here in this video, but I think what it showed, more importantly than the stats and the numbers, was the results on the field. And then they also have tight end Keyan Burnett, who had a little bit of production this year, but he's expected to be the starter for the Wildcats this year, and I think he'll step into an even bigger role. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you've got linebacker Jacob Manu. Already mentioned him. He was the leading tackler not only for the Wildcats, but in the Pac-12 conference with 116. He also was second on the team in tackles for loss with 9.5 and sacks with 6.5. So that's what these guys are doing now. That's pretty much all the preface that you need on what they're doing now. What I want to kind of do in this video is go into a little bit more of their history. I will say this is a kind of a tough situation. Their head coach, Jedd Fisch, who recruited each of these guys here, is gone now. On to Washington after Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama. They have Brent Brennan coming in as head coach, and the guys on the offensive side of the ball are going to get to work with Dino Babers, which I think is a really good hire at offensive coordinator, the former Syracuse head coach. Had some, lean years in Syracuse. I think that's probably just a really tough place to recruit to, and just when you're in a conference competing with the likes of Clemson and Florida State, some of the other teams in that conference that have stepped up, it's a little bit hard to win when you're up in New York. So I think he will be a fantastic addition. I think Brent Brennan is not a well-known head coach. He was pretty, I would say, average at San Jose State. I don't think he had more than a 7-win season during his tenure there. I think he was there for 6 or 7 seasons. So he brings experience. He doesn't have a ton of head coaching experience or a ton of especially successful head coaching experience, at least not on a high level. But it will be interesting to see how he plugs in. It'll be a tough challenge, too, because of what Jedd Fisch accomplished with this team last year. But again, I think that's probably about all the preface. This team was still, they lost a lot of guys, but they were still 10-3 Alamo Bowl champions with a win over Oklahoma. But what I want to do is dive into the backstory of these guys, and I think what I want to start with is just the friendship, the relationship that they have. Fifita and McMillan, along with, I believe, Manu, have been teammates, and especially Fifita and McMillan have been best friends since 8th grade. So they have that extreme familiarity with each other, which really is irreplaceable. You can go through all the drills in practice, you can go through tough workouts together and grow closer and all that sort of thing, build a brotherhood. But the longer time that you have together like that is what makes things like this even stronger. And so looking back at their senior season at Sevite High School in Anaheim, the team went 10-3. They lost 27-7 to Mater Dei in their last season, or in their last game of the season. And they also had a very COVID-shortened season in 2020, but all 4 of these guys had playing time in that season. But in the 2021 season, Fifita threw for almost 3,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. McMillan averaged 100 receiving yards per game. Burnett even caught 574 yards and 6 touchdowns, and then Manu was the team's leading tackler with 97 with 7 for loss. And that team also, Servite, in 2021, had Michigan's Mason Graham, one of the candidates, I think, this year to not only be Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten, but I think nationally as well. He's going to have some competition from his own teammate, Will Johnson, at quarterback, along with other guys throughout the country, maybe even Manu. But I think that just shows it's not a surprise. Southern California is known for its football talent, but having that many guys who not only have been big recruits, but have actually delivered at the next level, I think is really impressive. And what makes this situation with the 4 guys coming from Servite and all going to Arizona is just, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before. I've written a story kind of along the lines before. It's actually the one that I have there behind me. It's about a trio of Bellevue West in Nebraska players who all went to the University of Nebraska. Those guys are all going to be freshmen this coming season. I did this story last summer after they had each committed to Nebraska. Quarterback Daniel Keyan, and then wide receivers Davon Hall and Isaiah McMorris. All 3 of them played in high school together and will be going on to the next level. I think Hall and Keyan grew up playing together as well, I think since like 6th maybe or 7th grade. So it's just such a unique opportunity, and I kind of wanted to go over some of the things that they've said before. In a June 19th interview, or at least for a story that was published June 19th by the Arizona Daily Times, this was after the Fifita commitment. He went on a visit to Arizona with T-Mac who's McMillan, and Burnett, and it was kind of like an orange juice themed shoot, an OJ shoot, because Orange County is also kind of affectionately called or nicknamed Juice County. And so what Fifita kind of said in this interview, in this story, was on recruiting both of his teammates. Definitely, that's my next goal. Those are 2 must-haves. He also talked about their intangibles, their smarts on the football field, their intelligence. He talked about the adjustments that they can make on the fly. And he also mentioned how the fact that Arizona was recruiting the 3 of them showed that the Wildcats didn't just care about these 3 guys as players, but they cared about them as people, because they cared about the friendships and relationship that they had together, and trying to get those 3 guys to all sign with the Wildcats, which, of course, eventually they did. In a December 18th, 2021 story from the Orange County Register, this was on McMillan's commitment, and McMillan said this. He said, "It's awesome. I know they will change the Arizona program just like they changed ours for the better." So it's kind of a fun story this coming season to kind of see what these 4 can accomplish. I mean, last year was already fun. They've already accomplished a lot. I mean, they were, in the running for winning the Pac-12. If it wasn't for Washington and Oregon season, Arizona would have been right there. I think in the Big 12, that's wide open. Sure, Oklahoma State, Utah, maybe both Kansas teams are projected to be ahead of Arizona, but I think the Wildcats have a really good chance to compete in the Big 12, and seeing these 4 guys who all, especially Fifita, McMillan, and Manu have all played pivotal roles last year, were like the leading passer, leading receiver, and the leading tackler, and then Burnett stepping into a bigger role as a starting tight end. I think that's going to be an exciting development this year. And I think Arizona has a really good shot. Again, this conference is pretty open. I think if they can get some key wins early on, start stacking that up, unlike last year's 3-3 start, I think Arizona can have a really good shot to compete not only for the Big 12, but if they can get things done correctly, maybe just lose 1 game or 2 games all year, they could have a shot at making the college football playoff. In fact, they're one of the teams that I think right now is right on that fringe territory for making the playoff. But let me know your thoughts on this Servite squadron that is kind of heading Arizona's goals this year, and let me know what you think about just the unique scenario that this is. But that's all for this episode of College Football Talk. Plenty more 2024 preview coverage coming up here in the near future, in the coming weeks and a couple months before we get things kicked off. But that's all. I'm Peter Burnett, signing out. Peace.